Yaama. I just want to talk to those who tend to get defensive or upset when other mob advocate for mob to breed with their own kind, especially if you have your, through your skin system, your marriage system, abide by that. Now, I just want to advocate why. One of the reasons why. Sorry, I'll be very specific. One of the reasons why is yes, we do acknowledge that eugenics has taken place and it is still attempted to be utilized as an eradication method of not just breeding out, but getting rid of the First Nations peoples. This image up here was a depiction of an agenda for the colonizers, the European British colonizers, to, you know, again, eradicate First Nations people through breeding out. Eugenics, obviously, to Europeanize or basically to, um, end up with the end product of a pure white breed of people. And so, for those that aren't familiar, what happens is you take a First Nations person that has two First Nations parents and breed them with a European or a white person, and then you end up with a half caste. And then if you breed that half caste person with, again, a white or European person, then you end up with what would be deemed as a full European child. And so by that third generation, the First Nations blood would be wiped out. Now, when mob are out there advocating to marry your own kind or to produce offspring with your own kind, it is not racist. It is not what discriminatory. It is not what it is about, and it's not even necessarily about skin color. And I've depicted this uh, specifically for genetic purposes. And I say that because it's about for us preserving our genes, our genetic, especially our genetic traits. One of the things here is that through colonial science, if you agree or whether you don't agree, but we do agree that we've been here for a very long time, meaning isolated on this island for tens of thousands of years. Over that period of time, we have developed specific genetic traits. And so by this, it's not just breeding out the Aboriginal, but it's also attempted to eradicate, well, by default, it attempts to eradicate the genetics, the genetic traits, which also encompasses things such as talent. And I want to focus on talent here because I want to give our mob that incentive, to focus on the incentive on why we should preserve and maintain our genetics and keep them specifically within our gene pool as First Nations peoples. I reversed this image in saying that metaphorically to preserve the genetics. And again, specifically because of the talent. Over tens of thousands of years, we've developed certain genetic traits which are far more superior and advanced than a lot of other, especially the colonial, genetic traits. I can say that, for example, as a fact, because this is why we have people like, your Kathy Freemans, your Adam Goods, your Latrell Mitchells, your Paddy Mills, your Anthony Mundines, and all the such, is because it is the genetic traits, the talent. Again, that talent comes from the thousands, tens of thousands of years, possibly hundreds of thousands of years worth of, uh, those genetic traits passed down and refined over time that you cannot make up in a lab. You cannot get this you can only get it by abiding by our skin system and our marriage system. And so if we keep that skin system and marriage system and we abide by it and marry, again, even if you don't know it, marry within First Nations cohort. Now, again, I'm not saying marry a mob or anything like that. Definitely don't do that. But also, it's not an excuse, because I know that some people that do go out there and they get colonial partners or white people and produce offspring, they're like, oh, but I couldn't marry First Nation people because I don't know, I'm probably related. That's just an excuse. But again, preserve the genetics. Again, it's not necessarily about skin color, it's about preserving the genetics. And again, our genetics are worth preserving because, as I said, our genetics are far more advanced than a lot of other um, uh, people's genetics, cultural group or colonial group, especially any colonial group of genetics. We're far more advanced in that. So again, this is why we have some of the best sports people in the world. We're less than 3% of the population here of 27 million, but we are the best sports peoples. And so those genetics are worth preserving. So again, mob, don't get upset. Don't get defensive. Even if you do now have a non-Indigenous partner and produced, offspring, advocate for your children to partner with First Nations peoples and produce offspring. So yeah, there's nothing, again, I'm not saying change the past. I'm saying think about where we maneuver into the future. And again, a part of it is reverse the attempt to eradicate our people by, again, breeding with our own First Nations gene pool. And again, it's not racist, it's not discriminatory, it's just common sense. We need to advocate for it, we need to push that and preserve it and maintain it because, again, non-Indigenous people's perspective is, and their agenda is to eradicate it. And I'll tell you why, because it is a threat. You could see it as, you could view it as, or in light of a superpower or whatever. But you cannot produce this in a lab. You cannot get it over one generation. It's passed down through tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of years. And it is worth preserving. And you see that coming through now, that I even see colonizers wanting to marry into this gene pool or to acquire this gene pool by producing offspring, because it's a commodity. There's financial there's a financial incentive by having these genetics. So yeah, preserve them. Mob, don't get upset. Don't get defensive. Again, we're not expecting you to change the past, but to think towards the future. Think about your future generations, the next 1,000 years, the next few hundred generations. I'll leave this with you, Mom. Yellow.